this week we're going to be looking at hands. So first of all, let's just look at a skeleton hand here. They remind me a little bit of branches of a tree. So near the trunk of the tree it's thicker and then they gradually get thinner. And it's the same with the joints, the bones of the fingers. So this bit is longer and wider, thinner and shorter till you get to the last one. So they progressively get smaller. And of course as well, remember certain fingers are longer, aren't they? So the middle finger is longer and these two are shorter. I always find it sometimes nice, a bit like in PE, to do a warm-up exercise in art as well. So first thing you might want to do is just put your hand down. So visually, just draw around it and just have a look at those fingers and remind yourself about what happens. And it's almost like you're drawing it with X-ray vision, so you're thinking about what the bones and muscles are doing beneath the skin. Okay, but we're not going to draw it flat because it would be too easy for you. What I want you to do is actually see if in the house you have a bar of soap, preferably, so you can have a bar of soap in your hand and draw that. If you don't, just another object is fine, but I prefer if you have like a bar of soap because we would love to put some of these up in display around the school as well, what with COVID, just to encourage people to be hygienic and things. Okay, so the drawing task is decide on your position. I really want you to draw from observation, so actually having that in front of you just makes you look with fresh eyes. And then first of all, picture in your own mind what it's going to do on the paper, how it's going to fill the sheet. You want to sketch it really lightly because chances are things won't be quite in the right place. I'm going to push down a little bit harder than I would, just so you can see it here. But I'm doing very quick, quite angular lines, working out the overall composition. Don't get fussy about one area. And don't start drawing one finger as yet, or one fingernail. Just think about direction. So I'm thinking about the overall direction of the fingers coming down. And doing it quite rapidly, working over the whole image so I can reevaluate and change if necessary. Even though the bar of soap is covered a fair amount, I'm going to imagine I can see the whole thing, so I know how it would go underneath the fingers and how that will affect the way they're curling around it. Okay. Now, once you've done the whole overall composition, you can start digging into it and correcting, because your eye will look at what's there and adjust it. If you start grabbing your rubber and rubbing it out because it just doesn't look right, it's like you'll probably make similar or other mistakes, but your eye will work against what's already there. And sometimes those initial marks never have to disappear. Either you did it lightly, so it just gets lost in the flow of the drawing later on, or they can look quite interesting because you see the artist really thinking about what they're doing. Or like I said, if you do them light, it will just blend into the shading anyway. Okay, so remember here, even though I said this joint is the longest, because it's coming forward and this bit here is flatter, in fact, that becomes, it's foreshortened and looks a bit shorter. When you just do it as a line drawing, it can look a bit odd because everything becomes flat. But just try and be hard on yourself and draw what you see. And then later when you add the shading, it suddenly can start making sense. So my art teacher used to say, imagine your pencil's got hot feet and it's dancing across a hot surface. So you keep moving across the picture, because otherwise human nature is, if we spend a lot of time on something, we don't want to get rid of it. So if I kind of get that perfect finger, as near as possible to perfect finger, and then I go and do the thumb and I'm like, oh my god, I've done the finger in the wrong place, I probably don't want to rub it out because I spent so long on it. Whereas if I just sketch it, because I'm going to go back and change it later, I'm more likely to reevaluate and change my drawing. Okay, so when you've got to this point, it's easy to start rushing and presuming you know what things look like. So just stop sometimes and just evaluate what you've done and then go back in. Right. Now, you're going to have the whole lesson to do this, so you can really spend half of the lesson, 30 minutes, really thinking about where things are and the structure of the hand. But I'm going to move on so you're not spend ages just watching my video and not doing the task. But, you will have a picture a bit like that, and then you know how to do shading. You've done that with me lots of times, so you add some tone in it. The next thing I want you to do, okay, hopefully you've got some paint at home. If you haven't, don't worry, you could actually paint with tea or coffee as well. And then all of you will have some sort of washing up liquid or liquid soap, or even you can make liquid from the actual bar soap itself. And what you want to do is put it in the water and then agitate it. So you can either swirl it round or just stir it with the brush a little bit. And then when you paint, you put the bubbles on top and it will leave this bubble effect. I'm going to do that in the next video. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to do the painting section first of all. So let's imagine you put some shading on there. Think first of all, go for the darker tones, so where the shadow is hitting the hand. So if the light's coming from this direction, there'd be more shadow down this side. Okay. Then think about your mid-tones. So while it's still wet, you can kind of blend it on the paper as well. And fade those darker tones out. So you're giving some colour tone to the hand if you have paint. Like I said, you can do this with tea and coffee as well. Another thing you can do is maybe make especially if you've got quite a severe outline that you didn't manage to tone in, is think about a colour to put in the background to make that hand ping out a little bit. So what are you going to use as your background colour? And it doesn't have to be the colour in the actual room, it's just something to make your actual picture stand out. Okay, I'm going to show you part 2 in a minute.